Hello everybody, Eric again. Like and subscribe. Here we go. Let's continue reading about the 5th millennium BC. East Asia, China. Further information, Neolithic China. Chinese civilization advanced in this millennium, with the beginnings of 3 noted cultures from around 5000 BC. The Langshao culture was based in the Huanghe Little River Basin and endured for some 2,000 years. It is believed that pigs were first domesticated there. Pottery is fired in kilns dug into the ground and then painted. Millet was cultivated. A type-site settlement for the Langshao was established circa 4700 BC at Banpo near modern Xi'an, Shaanxi. Also about 5000 BC, the Homadu culture began in eastern China with cultivation of rice, and the Manzhoubang culture was established on the Yangtze estuary near modern Shanghai, lasting until circa 3300 BC. Oceania, the powerful chiefdoms. The powerful chiefdoms of the Proto-Pabrian polities continued to practice and advance their agricultural system in the form of ancient irrigation systems in the highlands of Papua New Guinea, or being studied by archaeologists. The New Guinea highlands, with immense population density, were an early and independent center of agriculture, with evidence of irrigation going back at least 10,000 years. Sugarcane continued to be farmed on mass scale since 6000 BC. Melanesian peoples and tribes continued to inhabit and thrive in Melanesia. Mesolithic hunter-gatherers continued to dominate most parts of Indonesia. Notable cultures are the Tolian culture. Trade and intercourse between the separated lands of Australia and Indonesia continue across the newly formed Torres Strait, whose 150-kilometer wide channel remained widely navigable, with the chain of Torres Strait islands and reefs fording into military stopping points. Ancestors of the Polynesians arrived in the Bismarck archipelago of Papua New Guinea at least 6,000 to 8,000 years ago, representing an early phase of colonization. Examination of mitochondrial DNA lineages shows that they have been evolving in ISEA for longer than previously believed. These Polynesian polities did not adopt nor intermarry on a large with the Australo-Melanesians like the Austronesians and island Melanesia had done so. Regardless, both show admixture along with other Austronesian populations outside of Taiwan, indicating varying degrees of intermarriage between the incoming Neolithic Austronesian settlers and the pre-existing Paleolithic Australo-Melanesian populations of island Southeast Asia and Melanesia as early as the late 5th millennium BC. Immense population densities and urbanized cultures in Taiwan and China made these early explorers and group explore what was beyond the frontier eastwards of coastal China herself. The very earliest wave of Austronesian migrants, originating ultimately from Taiwan, arrived in Melanesia circa 4000 BC. They settled mostly along the north coast of New Guinea and on the islands of its north and east. When they arrived, they came into contact with the much more ancient indigenous Papuan-speaking peoples. These earliest colonizations by Austronesian peoples will pale in comparison to the later, more rapid and expansive waves and the Great Austronesian Expansion, also called the Out of Taiwan model. Australia. It is estimated that the distinctive Aboriginal rock carvings near Sydney were created sometime between 5000 BC and 3000 BC. Sea levels had become relatively stabilized by the time of 4500 BC around the coastlines of Australia. This occurred after several thousands of years of sea level rising due to glaciers melting after the Younger Dryas event. This knowledge was passed down in oral history among the Aboriginal tribes of Australia, as they recalled the drastic sea level rises that ended up swallowing their once lower coastlines. Around the time of the 5th millennium BC, there was a proliferation of stone tool, plant processing, and landscape modification technologies. Elaborate fish and eel traps involving channels up to 3 kilometers long were in use in western Victoria from about 6,500 years ago. Semi-permanent collections of wooden huts on mounds also appeared in western Victoria, associated with a more systematic exploitation of new food sources in the wetlands. The Ferox group, which is a set of islands off the northeast portion of Tasmania, has been inhabited since at least 33,000 BC, but the Aboriginal Tasmanians stopped living there permanently around the time of 4000 BC. Block art in the Northern Territory of Australia, especially from the area of Arnhem Land, is said to have a portion of its depictions dating to around 4000 BC, which show battle scenes or skirmishes between the people in the local area. The art also includes animals and other ceremonial meetings. These scenes have been dated to up to 10,000 years old and down to 6,000 years old when painted continually over time. Stone points for spears and distinct stone point technology have been found dating from 5 to 7,000 years ago in Australia. Many of the early stone point technologies are especially found in the Kimberley region of northwestern Australia. Spear launching devices such as the Woomera are believed to have entered widespread use at around this time. Africa, north to latitude 15. Africa, north to latitude 15 degrees north of the equator. It is estimated that the beginning of the pastoral Neolithic was in the later phase of the Green Sahara in the 6th or 5th millennium BC. It was prior to the end of the African humid period, circa 3500 BC, and the dissipation of the Green Sahara. During this time, sub-Saharan Africa remained in the Paleolithic, as the grasslands of the Sahara began drying after circa 4000 BC. Herders moved into the Nile Valley, and by the middle of the 3rd millennium BC into eastern Africa. The earliest known permanent settlement in Egypt, situated at the southwestern edge of the Nile Delta, now Mored Ben Salama, dates to approximately 4750 BCE, possibly composed of as many as 16,000 residents. Mored culture flourishes in Lower Egypt circa 5000 and 4200 BC. Upper Egypt experiences a new phase of sanitarism from prior nomadic lifestyles circa 5000 BC. During the 5th millennium BC, migrations from the drying Sahara brought Neolithic people into the Nile Valley, along with agriculture. See History of Sudan. Pre-dynastic Egyptians of the 5th millennium BC pictorially represented geometric designs with further development of mathematics, alchemy, and astronomy within the polities of Egypt. See Napta Playa. This is simultaneous with cultural diffusions via the Sahara, African humid period. A second wave of intensive construction occurred around 4800 BC, where stone circles were aligned with the summer solstice near the beginning of the rainy season, emphasizing a virtue of fertility. More complex structures followed during a second intensive wave onwards from 4500 BC, with alignments with Sirius, Arcturus, Alpha Centauri, and the Belt of Orion. This suggests a great academic pursuit to investigate astronomical observations, cosmology, and mathematics. 5th millennium alignments of to bright stars focused on issues of major critical importance of the era, being cattle, water, death, earth, sun, stars, and theology. Tashian culture, Bedouin culture thrived with trade routes connecting Egypt to Syria. The Sinai and Red Sea both share culturally distinctive bathtub wear. Bedouin culture expands southwards towards future Heliopolis. El-Amari culture and the Munchian culture formed circa 4000 BC. Cultural distinctions between the two are first observed. However, Romantian influence begins to expand throughout Upper and Middle Egypt, with trade routes to cedar, from Byblos to gold, and obsidian imported from Nubia, representing complex social stratification. The fusion of African humid period religions and cultural traits eastwards to Egypt via political, social, and economical interrelated movements southwards. Migrations result in emergence of the Butana group circa 4000 BC, potential time to series figure existing circa 4100 BC to 3900 BC within Egypt. Maghreb transitions from the Mesolithic to the Neolithic stage, finishing completely circa 5000 BC, early 5th millennium BC, cattle herding, animal husbandry, and polities within the Sahara continued to thrive, most notably the Tenerian culture with Eurasian genotype. Eurasian migrations continue onwards in some places from the rapid migrations of the previous millennia into the Sahara, representing a time of great social and economic opportunity. Proto-Barbar populations migrate northwards towards Libya, resulting in increased population density and diffusion of religion, explained via the Sahara Pump Theory. One subclade, now known as R1B1A2, RV88, is found only at high frequencies amongst populations native to West Africa, such as the Fulani, and is believed to reflect the prehistoric back migration from Eurasia to Africa of peoples related to the ancestors of the Proto-Indo-Europeans and Altophians in the Paleolithic, with migrations continuing into the Neolithic, circa 5000 BC, to the Chalcolithic of the more ancient native Proto-Barbar peoples, sometimes to mix alongside the Capsian culture deeper into the Sahara. Cultural significant elements are complex theology, an archway, importation of exopreds, and dentistry. Sub-Saharan Africa. In the east, preceded by assumed earlier sites in the eastern Sahara, Tamoli, with Neolithic monuments developed as early as 4700 BC in the Sahara region of Niger, with complex theological work and social stratification present, potentially interconnected with the theological and astronomical advancements in Egypt. Dotted wavy line and wavy line pottery is traded across North and Eastern Africa by the various cultures. These pieces are some of the oldest examples of pottery made by Eurasian descended hunter-fisher-gatherers in a tradition that lasted 5,000 years since the 9th millennium BC, although constituent groups and genetic of Nilo-Saharan predate the African Neolithic by thousands of years. A unity of Eastern Sudanic occurs among socially stratified cultures in the 5th millennium BC. These cultures, although experiencing trade with Afro-Asiatic, stratified Constantinian cultures, experience migrations and cultural diffusion across the Sahara westwards, north, and eastwards themselves. East between 7500 BCE and 3500 BCE, amid the Great Sahara, on domesticated Central Saharan flora were farmed, stored, and cooked, and domesticated animals, e.g. Barbary sheep, were milked and managed in Libya. In West Africa, the post-war period spanned from the Savannah region to the Eastern Sahara region, and from Mediterranean to the Red Sea, which extensive trade between the regions and polities. Agriculture is introduced and advanced within West Africa by Eurasian descended populations alongside sub-Saharan populations. West, Venus favoring importations into sub-Saharan Africa via Eurasian descended pastoralists with the emergence of compulsively organized pastoral societies in West Africa between 4000 BCE and 1000 BCE, representative of a priest class with diffused religion from the Fertile Crescent, though possibly developed as early as 5000 BCE. Nezobanti may have also developed in 2000 BCE, as evidenced by depictions of the West African script on Okam monoliths at Okam in Niger. Central to West, populations and tribes spreading the Niger-Congo languages migrate with long-distance trade routes and large chiefdoms between Eastern and West Africa and their homeland of Central Africa millennia before. This expansion of the sect of the Niger-Congo languages may have been associated with the expansion of Sahel agriculture in the African Neolithic period, following the desiccation of the Sahara in circa 3500 BCE and segregation of the Eurasian descended Paleolithic and Neolithic peoples into West, East, and North Africa by the Sahara Desert. The contemporary expansion of the Niger-Congo languages preceded the later, more famous Bantu expansion. The final period, 4500 to 4000 BC, of the Roundhead period, Negroid hunter-gatherers who created the round-head rock art adopted the culture of cattle pasturation from incoming cattle pastoralists. South, red-finger painted rock art created between 4000 BC and 200 AD to the south of Kay River and Orange River by Christian hunter-gatherer and herders, and Malawi and Zambia by dark skin, occasionally bearded, bow and arrow wielding Ekofula hunter-gatherers who resided in Malawi until the 19th century CE, and in Transvaal by the Vangona people. Husian cultures continue from prior millennia to dominate southern Africa. Circa 4500 BC, Proto-Bantu chiefdoms near the Senegal and Nyang rivers of southern Cameroon expanded eastwards from proto-southern Bantuid chiefdoms, who in an early Bantu expansion had expanded into the south and east, engaging in the Paleolithic tribes of the Congo. Such social stratification and rapid political emergence via expansion gives us a depiction of the cultural complicity of these cultures. It was formerly thought that Proto-Bantu originates somewhere in the border region between Nigeria and Cameroon. However, the research revealed that it was more likely the original area of Proto-Southern Bantoid, before it spread southwards into Cameroon long before Proto-Bantu emerged. North America, 4130 BC. Toggling harpoons are invented somewhere in eastern Siberia, spreading south via trade into Japan, and east into North America, where they are ancestral to the sophisticated designs of the Inuit, and later European whalers. 4000 to 2000 BC, the Lucian languages split into Nadine in North America and Lucian languages in Siberia. The connection is commonly thought to have been the result of a back migration of early American Indians and Beringia back into Siberia, forming the Lucian peoples that were once widespread throughout Eurasia. Across the southeastern woodlands, starting around 4000 BC, big people exploited wetland resources, creating large shell middens. Old copper culture thrives in Awanto, northeastern Wisconsin. Native Americans in the northern Great Lakes produced copper tools, ornaments, and utensils traded throughout the Great Plains and Ohio Valley, representing a high level of social stratification. Emergence of the Shield-Ochak tradition, circa 4500 BC. Around 5000 BC, Holocene glacial runoff affects the southwest, and notably the Colorado Plateau, with stronger storm patterns we saw in significant rates of soil erosion. Pursuers to the migrations of the ancestral Pavilions lived through the climatic shift in tribes and chiefdoms in the Ochak early basket maker period, with cultural and trade connections to the early Kushes cultures, despite nomadic lifestyles and hunting seasons continuing early on from the 6th millennium BC. These cultures also had settlements with storehouses. The Cochise culture began circa 5000 BC alongside the San Digito cultures. Shell ornaments and copper items at Indian Knoll in Kentucky evidence an extensive trade system over several millennia across North America. During this millennium, astronomical and theological work continues to develop. Such examples, something with the yearly cycle and gift of maize production, is the origins of the green corn ceremony. The Tehuantepec culture, 5000 BC to 2300 BC, were likely Proto-Entomologian speakers that inhabited the area of the Tehuantepec Valley during the 5th millennium BC. Some estimates using the controversial method of collective chronology suggest an approximate splitting date of the Proto-Entomologian languages at circa 4400 BC. This makes the Entomologian family the 14. This makes the Entomologian family the language family of the Americas with the deepest time depth, as well as the oldest language family, with evidence of tonal contrast in the proto-language. Cultures of Mesoamerica advanced their cultivation of maize further, with the introduction of maize corn into the inter-Andean valleys of Colombia in this millennium, sometimes via highways. Meanwhile, Peruvian cultures continued to advance cultivation of beans and squash circa 4000 BC. Forest clearing is present, especially on the Gulf Coast, with the cultures of Mesoamerica, with social stratification present. Workshop stone settlements paved roads, and extensive obsidian trade, Suarchak period in Mesoamerica, and good shape. Despite sedentary cultures present within Mexico, typically coastal nomadic cultures also remain, with seasonal occupation for agriculture yearly, and store pets for meat, i.e., El Gigante, Honduras. Bye for now.